So I guess we can just start off with you introducing yourself to the channel, to anyone who might be watching, and go from there.
All right. Hello, Stygian Press devotees. My name is Margaret Pinard, and I'm normally a historical fiction and fantasy author. I've got 6 books. They are set in Scotland and Canada, and I have lived neither of those places, but I love taking readers into other settings and other times. So that is my love for the printed word. I've got a YouTube channel at Margaret Pinard, and that's basically where you'll find me most of the time.
And we will link everything down below, of course, everything you're working on in your channel. Actually, this leads perfectly into my question, which is, can you tell us a bit about your YouTube channel? Like, how did you get started and what kind of content do you create there?
Sure. So, this summer I've actually been in publishing 10 years. So it took
Congrats.
me 7 to start a YouTube channel. I think I had an idea about starting a YouTube component, but I was a little afraid of the video production side. So I had a friend help me with a couple intro videos and try to make that part of the website, but that's like 7 years ago now. So I restarted in 2020, actually doing it myself and really got into the booktube side. So I figured I could get in with readers, I could share things that I love reading, and then also sort of say, and hey, by the way, I also write books and you might like them if you like what I talk about. So hopefully appealing to like the eclectic readers who are open to try something new because I write about obscure moments in history and like universal struggles and hardships. So yeah, so summer 2020, a lot of us had a lot of time on our hands.
That's when I started my channel. That's when I got into everything because I was
Yeah.
afraid of video as well. Like I'd done some little director camps and stuff like that when I was a teenager, but that,
Uh-huh.
didn't apply to all the, doing everything yourself. So when the Rona hit, it was like, all right, I guess this is the time, no more excuses.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love the obscure history aspect. I really want to get into your stuff, so I'm definitely going to be reading. You've found a reader here.
Yay. Yeah, and at one point I also wanted to be a tour guide. So there's
Okay.
like, scintillations of cross currents here definitely going on. So
Okay, yeah, and I almost do bits of that with Haunted Montreal, but I'm too afraid to actually go out and guide people in person.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's so different, when you're in front of the camera, it's like, okay, I can edit and I can take a breather, but if you're in front of people, that is just like you're on the spot.
Theater spotlight,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, what inspired you to contribute to the Stygian collection?
Well, I got an email out of the blue asking me to submit. And number one, you're obviously going to win someone over by asking them because you're giving them a vote of confidence in themselves that maybe they don't have, right? But also, I have been thinking about short stories and never really had the um I guess I'll say it never really felt aligned with where I was as an indie author because it felt like short stories and clips and pieces in published journals were mainly something people did to get into traditional publishing. And
Right.
you'd get these things under your name, you get your credits, and then you would have something to query with. And since I was not going that way, I thought, why am I going on this side thing? Where is it going to go? I don't have a vision for this. So I basically was like, no, novels are easier, right? So
Yeah.
I hadn't done too much applying, but especially with your very open like author tuber community aspect of this, that's what I was like, okay, well, maybe I have a chance. And with the topic being so different, I was like, and what do I have to lose? Like, this is not something I think I'm, good at. It's just going to be something I'm trying to like change the flavor of and see if it works. So yeah, the combination of all that is what let me think that I had a chance and
And
that
you
I would
did.
fit in. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love your piece. Like all of the pieces are so unique. They each
Yeah.
have something very different. And I just love the sort of genres and elements that you blended. I don't want to spoil too much in these interviews, but I do, want to be able to talk about what you wrote. So do you want to share a little spoiler-free bit about your story?
The short story is science fiction. It's about a world that is a little further along than we are, but dealing with the same types of people. And there's one preoccupation that the humans have, and that is part of changing their culture. But the little point that the plot hinges on for this short story is actually the monitoring of Earth. So if you look at the movie Wall-E and you know that there's a corporation floating out in space monitoring when it's safe to come back home, that's sort of the takeoff point. And yeah, we've got some interesting people in space and goals and conflicting aims. That's what I'll say.
That's a good way to put it for sure. It one of my favorite things about short stories is when they make you want to read like a larger version of the story. And I would say yours definitely did that because it's just this one little highlight that is pulled out of so much. It's like, oh, but I want to know what led up to this. I want to know about these characters. So I think you crafted it very well.
Yeah. I don't read too widely in the strictly sci-fi genre. So most of my stuff is like fantasy and films, sort of like adaptations. So that's when I'm pulling sort of world building stuff from stuff that might be in other people's consciousness and I'm sort of borrowing. So that's like my, I think, into the genre at this point.
Yeah, it worked. And I kept thinking, oh, I need to go back and read more sci-fi because I was doing that a lot in high school and then I sort of
Yeah.
took a break. So, and it's such a fun genre. And so like you can do so much in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this isn't on my question list, but do you think you might write more in that area now that you've explored it a bit?
Oh, um, yes, I've read a couple articles recently about being an author and appealing to multiple audiences and what that entails if you're going to be a responsible marketer and publisher of yourself. And I'm kind of like, okay, I've got historical fiction and fantasy, historical fantasy, and those kind of go together because there's world building in both. What would I have to do to also stretch that to be sci-fi? Like, number one, I don't feel like I have the cred because of the like background and like the vast tropes that are a little different from the fantasy tropes and that kind of stuff. So I think what I will continue to do is to write scenes that have supernatural elements. And if that sort of steers me into the sci-fi genre, then I'll be happy to say that that's what it is at the end, but not set out with that as the goal.
Okay.
So yeah, for whatever reason, that seems to be the recent results.
You could play around with stuff like steampunk, which I feel like you could sort of fit into that. I don't know if you've done any of that before, but I could see, those sci-fi futuristic elements, but with the historical stuff, you could definitely merge it. And with the future, there's so much you can build on like in fantasy. So I could see it slipping into one another for sure.
Yeah, and like add fan fiction in there. So my short story collection that came out last year, I had a story in there that was like my favorite story that I don't feel anyone really connected with, but
Oh,
I really
that
did.
happens so often.
Right. And so it was like Hamlet fan fiction in an
Oh, nice.
alternate universe. So it was basically Ophelia's like alternate story and it's steampunky and there's, ships and she's escaping to the, north of Italy and this kind of stuff instead of actually
That's
drowning.
so cool.
Yeah, but I don't think that clicked with anybody. So, you got to write what's in your heart.
You do. And at least being in the indie world, you're able to do that more when you're just,
Yes.
when you're promoting yourself.
Right.
So I think this comes to this point very well. As a creator on YouTube, you're indie, you're marketing yourself. How do you balance the demands of like creating videos, getting your writing done, and how would you help anyone who's wanting to do the same sort of thing?
Whew. I would say it's kind of like that ride at the amusement park that is a circle and you sort of get flung around in small circles, like kind of like a spirograph if you had
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Like, the centripetal force kind of throws you around and you focus on one thing and you get enough done that you're like, okay, I think I moved the ball forward. And then like you're flung around to the next thing, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to focus on this. For me, it's not like I can do this for 2 hours and that for 2 hours and then like my workday is done. It's just like kind of rolling with whatever comes in. Like if I have short story scenes, that's what I did in April. I had 30 short story scenes, if I have ideas for I don't know, what I've been working on lately is a marketing plan. So social media stuff and
Yeah.
posts to promote other people, like that's what I'll roll with for a few hours. So yeah, just like rolling around.
That's an excellent comparison. I feel like it's like that for sure. Because even if you try, like I have multiple calendars where I try to plot everything out. I
Oh
have
yeah.
like Asana, I have a printed thing, I have like the monthly thing, the weekly thing, I have notebooks, and
Mhm.
I'll try to organize it and be like, this is what you're going to do at this hour. It never really works that way. And you have to just have your general idea of like, this is all I need to do
Right.
and bounce between them all
Right.
because
And the time
you'll
sensitive things,
yeah,
right?
exactly. You'll have to
Yeah.
work with like your deadlines and it's different every day, every week.
Which
It
is
never
kind of
is
why it's exciting and why it works, right? Because you
exactly.
still feel engaged rather than like drudgery. So that's what I like
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Like you definitely have to be someone who is okay with swinging with the punches and just like okay, I'm gonna be here. Now I'm gonna be here. You have to be able to do that because I don't
Yeah.
think it really works any other way.
Right. And I would say my best recommendation for like helping someone who is getting overwhelmed with all this, what helps me feel like I'm accomplishing something and not just like lost in the woods is when I write down what I accomplished. Because if I'm skipping from 5 different things in a morning, I may finish that morning and be like, what did I even do? And then feel bad about it. But if you write down, okay, I spent this doing the social media queue and I spent this like calling the health clinic and I spent this like like the life stuff needs to get done too. So then you feel like, okay, I've got a handle on it and you don't feel like lost in the woods.
That is a really good idea, just because you're right. It does. There was a day where a couple days where I was trying to record what I was doing every hour just to try to get a grip on
Oh
what am
yeah, an
I
audit.
doing? Like, am I
Yeah.
overworking myself? Is there a way I could be working smarter? That sort of thing. And once you start writing it down, you see how much you're doing every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's impressive and it's nice to see that. It's
Yeah.
really nice. It's
You're
like
like treat
having
yourself like a billable consultant. Like you're doing all the stuff they are. So, note it down.
yeah, it's giving yourself some gratitude.
Yeah.
It's
It,
important sometimes.
yeah.
So,
Definitely.
back to Stygian as we bounce around a little bit here again.
Yeah.
Can you share an anecdote or a memorable experience related to the process of writing this piece, which was something, new for you to do?
Oh, let's see. It was it felt very easy to me. So it's very short. It's only about 1,000 words. And I think it basically came out in one piece. And I did some like cleaning up before I sent it off. And then Pamela, the editor, came back with, well, that was really clean. I see like 2 periods and a semicolon. Like, and I was like, see, I work clean. This is like, I don't know, one of these kind of
Yeah.
moments. But yeah, the counter to that is that you never expect that that's going to happen. And maybe that's why I haven't like applied to short stories and presses en masse, is that that's
Mhm.
the dream. But like it just comes along like that so rarely that I was like, okay, I'm okay with this sending off. And, what happens will happen. And then to get the news and then be included and then meet all the people. Like it's been a dream. I
Oh,
just did my
awesome.
mid-year freak out book tag. And I saved the Stygian collection for the book that made me happy because even though I haven't
Oh,
read it yet, the process has made me like so excited about publishing again that I said, this is the book that made me happy this year.
oh, I'm so glad. I
Yeah.
I really wanted to do that sort of thing because I just feel like it's so easy when you're creating online and you're a writer to just kind of get stuck in your own little world and maybe not be feeling as accomplished and that sort of thing. So it's always
Yeah.
nice to have projects out there that do this, and we tried to make it very special. So I think
Yeah,
that came across.
definitely. The pins and everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
more
should have
people
come
were
with my
getting them.
goggles. Yeah,
Oh
I should
yeah.
have put my goggles in my hat. Oh well.
Oh, that's fine.
We'll do that when you're on my channel and I'm hosting
Yeah.
you guys.
Excellent. So I think we've talked about this a bit, but I wanted to get into, how you feel about being a part of an anthology that features other YouTube creators as sort of a primary thing, and what excites you about that sort of community aspect.
Mm. Well, I have never been part of something where the contributors got to like talk to each other. So having that
Oh,
open
okay.
and those like channels is great.
Oh,
I mean, you
cool.
can find each other afterwards, but like having that facilitated by the publisher has been fantastic. And I think I knew two or maybe three of them beforehand. So it's a great way to know more people. We're constantly in BookTube saying it's so small, and yet there are so many silos that we don't know about. You're like, how did you learn about a booktuber who's got like 70,000 subscribers, and you're like, how did I not know about them? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. There's just so many sides to this polygon, I'm lost. So getting to know more people and then having that experience where like you're gently, kindly like encouraged to meet and not network. What's the other word? Schmooze? I don't know, like chat with each other.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's been really nice.
Oh, great. Yeah, like I hope that the networking and the collaboration does continue moving forward because that would be so nice. It's always good to have a bit of a supportive group, even if you already had other people. It's just more author
Yeah,
tubers and
yeah,
booktubers, right? And it's good
yeah.
to bring the community together.
As part of my like new marketing plan sort of approach, one of my things is
Oh, great.
like more collabs. I've sort of fallen off the wagon of like scheduling collaborations with people, and the network, the Stygian network is on that
Mhm.
list, and like some of the people that I met and were at some of the Zooms that you hosted are definitely on the list now. So yeah, I'd love to host
Wonderful.
them.
I
Forward
love
that.
hearing that.
Yeah.
So, what are your hopes and expectations for the Stygian collection and how it will be received by readers?
Oh, this is always a hard one because, you know, when you publish a book and you let it out into the world, you're kind of like, okay, it's not mine anymore. It's just the readers. And you have to sort of have a boundary for reviews and such. But
Yeah.
I feel like the package of the book is so um professional and impressive. Like the art and the Kickstarter and all the things that sort of indicate to people what to expect
Mm.
are so high. I'm kind of like, and I hope the writers come through on their part, you know? So I'm excited to see lots of people interested and trying it out. I know several people who have said they've ordered it, which is very
Oh,
exciting.
awesome.
Um, I'm still trying to like find my language about how to appeal to people who maybe like me aren't normally horror readers or like
Hmm.
dark fantasy readers.
Hmm.
So when I get my copy, I'll be going through and like going, ooh, this will appeal to this will appeal to this. And so like forging those lanes with different types of audiences is like definitely one of the things that I'm going to be looking for.
Hmm.
Um,
There's a lot of variety, like quite a bit, and it's still the thing that I was impressed by, like once we got everything together, because I was approving stories, but then you put it together, it's like, okay, how does this all read as one
mhm.
entity? And we wound up splitting it into those three segments, and I just think it's interesting to see how well it flows and with the different topics. And I mean, if someone isn't too into like horror or fantasy or really dark stuff, there are those philosophical pieces. Like there's a very light, well, I mean, there's dark elements, of course. There's dark elements in all of these, but there's Sam Green's piece, which she
Oh
describes
yeah.
as Kafka meets Dr. Seuss. So like that's
Yeah.
a pretty good one to show to people. Like there's stuff like that in there too. There's a healthy sprinkling of variety.
Mhm. Yeah. It's kind of like if you think about which way would I phrase this? If you think about laughter and the presence of sadness and any bout of laughter, like because you've experienced the downsides, you treasure the joy and the bubbling up that much more. I feel
Mhm.
like in every little bit of darkness or every bit of light, there's darkness sprinkled. So maybe that'll like, I don't know.
You
You know,
can't
it's
really
coming
have
to me
one
now.
without the other. Yeah, you can't have one without the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And I think that as people read, they'll every piece there's something to think about. And I think that's very important in
Yes.
a collection of works.
Mm.
So How do you believe we have two questions left.
Okay.
How do you believe that your experience online and on YouTube has influenced your writing, if it has at all?
Um,
Putting everything out there in the world, right? As you do it.
yeah, yeah. Um, there's so many angles to this. Like when I was describing branching out into other genres, I think that's definitely something that I've gotten from being exposed to people who read different books and hearing about things that I haven't read. Like that's the point of BookTube, and part of like it's like jimmied open the the door in my brain to like
Right.
hard sci-fi and stuff. Because I've read a couple and they were really good. So I'm like, well, there's just a certain combination that works for me. So I got to find that in a different genre.
Hmm.
So that has opened me up to writing in different markets. Um, the original, I won't say intent, but the original hope of starting the YouTube channel and being consistent and growing an audience was to achieve something that I hadn't done before, which was like have a sustainable source of income, right? And so that has not come to pass. And so with that sort of learning and trying to, you know, appease a formula,
Yeah.
there's been some um I don't know,
You,
hopelessness that's crept in. It's the same stuff you all have as a writer anywhere, even if you're not online. It's like it's
yeah,
all shit, you know, like,
looking
self-doubt.
at looking at what people want, and in this case, algorithms and stuff, right?
Right,
It winds up
right,
sort of driving you a little bit when you might prefer to just be driven by your own creativity.
right. So, I mean, there's definitely writers who can argue for writing to a trend. I am not that person because I'm a slow writer. So, like, the trend would be like on its third cycle before I
Same.
got to it.
Yeah, but if
So,
you start, it might have come back around
come
and then
back.
you'll be
Yeah.
ready to go again.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I would say that the actual like active writing is more contained in like a spurt. So my first novel I did over like a year and change, drafting after work as full-time nonprofit worker in DC. And everyone since that has been during Nano, drafted in a month and then edited laboriously inharmoniously ever after.
Yeah.
But the fast draft is sort of like the hyper focus for a month or like 6 weeks. And that's sort of how I write now. So I don't know if that's being on YouTube, but it's definitely being part of the Nano community, which is online. So yeah, that really I think works for me because I like having a goal and like checking off that box and getting that gold star, but I don't like doing that forever.
Yeah.
So like give me a date and I'll be good till then. So yeah.
That's how I write these days too, ever since joining up in 2020, because I was a never finisher.
Mm.
And then I decided, let's try Nano, and I jumped into it and I finished a draft. I was like, okay, I can do this. And now that's
Yeah.
that's how I do
You
it.
just needed a container. There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing to get out of being in the online community for sure.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
as we wrap this up, I want to know, are there any other projects or creative endeavors that you're currently working on that you would like to share with the readers of the Stygian Collection and with our audience?
Yes. So I am working on something that sort of doesn't make sense in my head yet, but I've got a lot of material for it. So in April, my Camp Nano project was to write 30 days short story scene a day. And they span over 100 years, but they're
Oh,
all
wow.
sort of related to land and power and um, Scotland and Ireland coming into its own in terms of the land rights movement.
Mm.
And again, obscure history sounds esoteric, and I want to find a way to bring all those pieces of history together. And maybe it's a novel in short stories. Maybe it gets shoehorned into historical fantasy. Like I haven't decided yet, but I love the moments that I picked out of these like dry history books, and I like really want to bring them to life to readers. So that's what I'm working on currently.
I like that. You'll have to, well, I'll have to follow you on your channel and see how you come along with that because I would love
Yeah.
to read that. That is like
Huh.
that's right up my alley for sure.
Cool. Thanks.
Very cool. So, yeah, thank you for joining on this little interview. You will be our first one to showcase, so it's very exciting, and I can't wait to show this off on our channel. I think it's been a really good conversation. And again, if people want to find you online, where should they look?
So you can always find me at Margaret Pinard on YouTube. That's Pinard like Captain Picard with an N. So that should be easy to pronounce and easy to find. I'm also on most other platforms and very excited to talk books with anyone and get recommendations and give them. So there you go.
Wonderful. And I look forward to our continued collaborations.
Yes, very excited for the network to come.
Yes, the network. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.